You're listening to Healing Voices Project, where we share stories and the latest information from people who fight addiction every day. I'm Mike Torville, your host and author of Voices from the Fallen. Thank you for listening, for following, and most of all, for sharing with people you care about. Make your voice count too. Hello everybody, thanks for coming back again. Welcome back to Healing Voices Project. Today our guest is Christina Dillon. Christina is the Program Director for the Impact Center in Springfield, Massachusetts. And we're going to talk to Christina about her own experiences, what led her to her position right now, and all kinds of related things. Christina, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, yeah. You and I met about a week or so ago, and we sort of got connected prior to that.
Yes.
Because we had another guest on, Ken, a few weeks back. And Ken's a great guy, and I saw how he had transformed, and he talked a lot about the Impact Center. And I had intended to reach out to you, but you beat me to it. I was really glad you did too, because I said, oh, great. And so we started talking about that and then met in your office and had a nice conversation. And so after that, I said, oh, God, this is great, because you've got so much to share about your own experiences that I think are relatable to a lot of people, and how you've overcome a lot of childhood trauma, moving around, what you've observed through your own parents and foster homes and siblings and all kinds of experiences that not only affected you directly but surrounded you, which became the norm for you to grow up. And you emerged from it, not only to emerge from it all, but also to now help others through the same type of thing, which is really commendable. And you're still a very young woman with a lot ahead of you. And so I give you an immense amount of credit. And you are, as I mentioned, the program director for the Impact Center. So I want to get into your history, your experiences, because that's really important. But give us a quick, what is the Impact Center? Okay. What's it about? And then we'll dive into your personal stuff.
So the Impact Center is a drop-in center, just a big place of resources for youth and young adults in the community who need to get connected to other resources within their communities.
So if it's a drop-in center, people can just show up?
Yep.
Is that, okay.
We're very low barrier, no referrals. We don't charge for our services. We don't run insurance. It's all free to our youth in all of Western Mass.
Are you open 24/7 or
no?
Okay.
No.
So people can drop by during what hours?
So Monday through Thursday we're open from 9 to 5:30, and then Fridays we are open from 9 to 12:30. Except the last Friday of the month, we utilize that to catch up on trainings.
And who would typically drop by? What type of people would show up there?
Anyone between the ages of 16 and 26. So these young adults could be youth who are experiencing homelessness, couch surfing. It could be young adults who just need a space to get away from home. It could be youth that don't have access to like Wi-Fi, computers. We kind of see a little bit of everyone. I think a lot of the times people think it's just a high-risk youth who come to our space, but we see all types of.
And you help people connect to other resources.
Yes.
That's your primary thing.
Yep.
Once they come in, now what?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, now what do you do?
So we give the youth a tour, kind of introduce all the staff, who we are, what we do, why we're here, let them feel the space out, and kind of just let them sit in it, right? We want them to make sure that they feel comfortable and that this is a space that they feel they will utilize.
Okay.
And if it's not something that's for them, that's totally okay.
Yeah.
They're always welcome back when they are ready to use us.
And you gave me a tour last week.
Yes.
It was very nice, and one thing I noticed, it was very clean.
Yeah.
We talked about that, but I was like, wow, this place is spotless. That's great. Somebody's doing a great job there. So I was really impressed with how organized it was and how clean it was and how welcoming it was, and I could see that observing with the people that are there. You've been at the Impact Center for 8 years.
I've been with the agency 8. With Gandara. I've been with Impact specifically 5 years.
And you are the program director. And you've been a program director for how long?
For a year.
For a year. So it's become your home for a long time, hasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good. You enjoy your work there quite a bit.
I love what I do.
I could tell, and I think you said you can't picture yourself doing anything else.
No.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I think you're making a great impact. No pun
Yeah.
intended, but that's the truth, you know. So that's all good to know, because the people that show up there are people like you.
Mm-hmm.
People like what you've gone through, what you experienced in your early childhood, well, since you can remember,
Mm-hmm.
right? You grew up in Holyoke, Mass.
I did.
Let's go from back. Tell us about your own background and your experiences through. So since you, we're going to push you to deep sleep and talk about things now. Go deep dive. And actually, no, let's see where did things begin for you, and what was your life like in your early childhood?
Oh man. The furthest I can go back and like remember was on Dwight Street in Holyoke.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in, it was a nice house in a not so great spot, with my mom, my dad, and 3 brothers.
3 older brothers?
2 older brothers and a younger brother.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I was 6 at the time. And
Things started to change a little bit?
a lot.
What happened?
My father started drinking a lot. He mixed that, of course, with different drugs. My mom also got involved heavily in drugs. It was a lot of fighting and abuse and just not.
And as a 6-year-old, that's overwhelming. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so you endured this for a while, and it didn't get any better. It got worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to say about a year. And the last thing I remember is my mom was like laid out cold in the tub after a domestic dispute with my dad, like physical.
Okay.
I remember my dad leaving the house and just thinking like, holy hell, like my mom's dead, right? Like mom's
And
dead.
you're there with her to figure things out.
Yes. Cops were called. It's kind of all a blur. I remember being in the hospital, and then the next thing I know, all my things are in trash bags, and I'm at the DCF office.
Who put you there?
Um,
You don't know, but
No.
but some
Yeah.
people arrived
Yeah.
and made a decision that this home wasn't safe for you.
Absolutely.
How about your brothers?
My 2 older brothers were taken somewhere else. I don't know
You
where.
were separated.
We were separated. Me and my younger brother were fortunate enough to be put in the same home at first.
A foster home
Yes.
at first. So you went to a foster home, a little confused as a young child.
Mm-hmm.
Foster home life changed things, or not so much?
Yeah, it was a big adjustment. The beautiful thing about the first foster home we were in, it was with a woman who actually worked at the school that we attended.
Okay.
So it was really cool to see a familiar face, right? But it was also kind of, I felt a lot of like shame and embarrassment because this is not something I ever disclosed with any of,
You had to
the
hide that.
teachers
Yeah.
or staff. So
You felt a little vulnerable there, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we were there, I want to say, until I was I was 8 going on 9. And then at that point, I was able to return home, which didn't last long.
Because the same things were happening?
Well, my father was sort of in and out of the picture. We didn't really have a relationship. He would come once in a while. But my mom was just struggling really bad with her mental health, with drug use, different men coming in and out of the house. I just remember it was very chaotic. Like, school became my safe haven. And I became, it's weird, right? Because you say childhood, but I don't ever remember being a child. So.
You were sort of thrust into a level of things that only adults should experience. So you're home, your mom's dealing with all these issues. School was your safe haven, but that wasn't going to last forever. That was sort of a little pocket of time, and then things started to change again.
Yeah, my mom, again, she got progressively worse. I remember the first thing I would do in the mornings is go into her room and put like my head against her chest to make sure she was alive. And I remember one day just, I guess, kind of being fed up with that. Like I was exhausted. And I was more concerned about my little brother. You know, at that point, me and my older brothers didn't have a great relationship. But they were also old enough to kind of just go do their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
leaving you alone.
Yeah, I resented them for that. Mm-hmm. But I also don't blame them. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, I remember just telling the staff at the school what was going on, what I had been going through. And, you know, they kept us at the school for a bit. We never went back home. Never went back home.
That was the end of that.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I ended up in foster care again. Mm-hmm. And again, I got really fortunate. I was put in the system with the previous woman's sister, who also worked at the school, Maria. Her name's Maria. And I ended up in her home, and it was probably the best thing that happened to me. Mm-hmm. It was definitely the best thing that happened to me. Absolutely.
You felt somewhat more secure, obviously,
Absolutely.
Because you had the connection with the sister, and
mm-hmm.
But your younger brother didn't go with you?
He did at first, but he had a really difficult time. He was too young to understand what was going on.
So then you went through this. You were in a good situation, but you get through high school, and then things were rosy forever?
No. So I was pulled out of this foster home at 12.
Why?
So I was 9 to 12 because we had a family member who decided to step in and become my foster parent. And apparently they thought that was a great idea. They made a choice for me, and they packed my stuff and sent me to Florida. It was really hard for me and my foster parents. They had a really hard time. Mm-hmm. I feel like that definitely affected their moving forward as foster parents, mm-hmm. and then how I perceived the system a little bit.
You became a little tainted from that.
Yeah.
So you got pulled away mm-hmm. down to Florida, unknown land, unknown everything else, and then how did things go in Florida?
It was hell. It was horrible. It was horrible. You would think that because you're with family that you are safer, mm-hmm. right? These are people that you grew up trusting.
Mm-hmm. What type of things were happening?
A lot of emotional and physical abuse. Definitely a lot of favoritism. I felt like, you know, I got to that age, like I was 13 when I realized, like, you know, she decided to take me in because she thought it was beneficial for her in regards to income, I feel.
Okay.
I was left one time. One thing I really remember about being there is just I felt like a maid. Like I was an overachiever at school because I wanted to make her proud. I was an overachiever at home because I wanted to make her proud. And nothing was ever right.
You were just trying to please them, and yet
Absolutely.
What you got in return wasn't the same.
No.
Yeah.
And I knew that at that point, it wasn't so much about her caring about me when she left me with some random people. Like she went on vacation with my 2 cousins and left me with the neighbors. No idea who these people are. Thank God they were really good people. Thank God they were really good people. But she left me with, it was a husband and wife, and they had like a 2-year-old child. And for a week I stood with them. And even they thought it was kind of like weird.
What the heck? Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But also they didn't want to, I guess, complicate it more than it already was.
They just went along with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You stayed in Florida for how long?
So I was 16. I planned a trip with my foster mother and the social workers to come and visit her for the summer. I was really excited for that. I remember getting into a huge fight with my aunt before I left. And while I was with my foster parents visiting, my aunt had called and said that when I went back, I wasn't going to be living with her anymore, that I could pack up all my things and leave. It was just really weird. I also know now that she was dealing with a whole bunch of her own, you know, trauma and mental health stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
sounds like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So pack your bags, you're no longer going to live with us, and that leaves you where?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I actually never ended up going back. My foster mom refused to send me back. She felt like it was unsafe. They figured out amongst, DCF to kind of just keep me there.
Okay.
And so I ended up staying with my foster.
This is in the middle of high school years, right?
Yes.
And
My sophomore
you said
year.
you were an overachiever. You were doing well in school.
Oh, yeah.
And now that gets disrupted again. Now you're back at school in Holyoke.
Holyoke High. Started there my junior year.
And then things turned out how?
It was good. It was good as far as my home, right? Like, I felt safe. I felt like I belonged, but I was struggling a lot with my own mental health and just trying to regulate my emotions, which got in the way of a lot of things, I became very resentful.
Distrustful?
Yeah, absolutely.
What did that lead to?
I ended up... So I would engage in a lot of self-harm behavior, right?
Cutting yourself?
Cutting myself, abusing over-the-counter pills. I started skipping school my senior year.
So that overachieving thing went right down the drain.
Yeah.
With all these issues that you were burdened with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was weird because it was like all of a sudden, right? I was okay one day and the next it was just like...
You reached your capacity. You reached your point where you said, I can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier with your mom, you were exhausted by it. And now this reached the level of exhaustion that you just couldn't take it anymore. It sounds like, you're abusing pills over the counter, but then you must have got a tolerance from that and you said, this is no longer having the effect. What'd you do then?
So I ended up getting pregnant, and I dropped out of
That's always
high
a good
school.
solution.
Right. It's a great outlet.
This will make things better. But anyway.
It definitely, though, helped, and it's weird, right? Because it did and it didn't. But it kept me away from the substance.
It was sort of a forced,
Yeah,
right?
Because at that point, it was like, I don't want to be anything like my parents to this child. And I didn't want to have DCF involved in any way.
You were, what, 17?
I was 18 and I got
18?
pregnant.
Right, yeah.
And so I decided to leave the foster care system. I didn't want to burden my foster mom, which she never made me feel that way. But it was something that I was like, I feel like I've put them through enough that I didn't want to continue doing that. And so I started couch surfing, experienced a little bit of homelessness while pregnant and trying to navigate, like, what the hell am I going to do now?
You're pregnant, you're 18, and you're homeless. You're bouncing from friends, places, and you wore that, and you had to find you're like a little nomad there. But as the clock is ticking, you're getting towards your due date and still homelessness. So as you got to be close to when you were going to have this baby, where were you?
So I ended up at my son's father's parents' house. They let me sleep on a little cot there. It wasn't great, but it was better than
you're
being on the
8-9
streets.
months pregnant and you're sleeping on like a little cot.
Yeah.
That can be comfortable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so so you had your child.
I did, and
Your daughter.
at first, yeah.
Yeah. So you had your child. You're at your son's parents' house, and now you're facing the world now. What was your prospects? What did you do?
What didn't I do, right? I was trying to work. I was trying to go to school.
Well, you're trying to work. You're trying to do a job, but did the parents watch the child? You took your child to work?
I utilized everyone who was willing to help, right? Like my best friend.
Bouncing around then?
Yeah,
Just
it was
here, there. Okay.
It was messy
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I kept with me, which I think about all the time, even till the day I met my husband and like packed my stuff or putting my things in trash bags and just navigating everywhere with our things in trash bags.
No place to really call home.
No, absolutely not. I want to say my son was about 1 when I started abusing over-the-counter pills again. I started drinking a lot every weekend. I'd go out and drink. I
And
mixed
using pills. Yeah.
I'm grateful I never strayed from that. Like, I didn't try anything a little more hardcore because I felt like, no, that's bad. What I'm doing, it's okay because I can buy them.
At least you rationalized that it was less harmful than
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I want to say, I was living with my mom and my stepdad at the time, and I remember coming home, and there was a letter taped to my bedroom door. Right, I would leave my kid with my mom all the time. It was weird, right? The one person I didn't trust growing up.
Well, you didn't have a lot of choices, though. Right. So okay, yeah.
And it was a letter from my mom, and it was just really weird to read that she was worried about my behaviors and how it was going to affect me moving forward, and how it was affecting my relationship with my kid, and how it was missing, his first steps and his, big pivotal moments, right? And honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you, I think the first 3 years were a total blur. Until this day, I feel guilty. But that was the turning point for me. That was,
the letter.
Yeah, from my mom.
Was a wake-up call.
Absolutely.
And from the person who you least expect it from. So you say, well, this got to mean something. If she's noticing this behavior, what's everybody... Yeah. So you started to say, all right, I got to sort of bring myself out of this for the sake of your own life, but your child's life. So you started to make some changes.
Yep.
Yeah. Got away from the drinking.
I did.
Got away from the pills.
I did.
Started becoming more responsible. Trying to find a permanent home.
Yep.
And you were able to slowly accomplish that.
Yes.
And your work then wasn't the work you're doing now.
No. So I was managing a laundromat, a 24-hour laundromat. I was working a lot, right? I was working a lot, but it was good because it kept me busy enough where once I was out, I was too tired to do anything, and other than just be home with my kid. I ended up moving in with my best friend and her parents, who have become a huge part of molding me into the woman that I am today. They kind of gave me a wake-up call too when it came to that, like, you've got to get your head out of your ass.
You had certainly the intelligence, you had all the capabilities, you had it in you. Prior to all the issues that you were experiencing, that you said you were an outstanding student, you were overachieving, you had the sense of say, oh, I can do this, but then you took a nosedive and got away from all of that. And now you had to bring back that person, right? And so all of this experiences that you're sort of clearing your head from the fog of things, the blur of things that was occurring, and now you're saying, okay, now fast forward a little bit, but you're recognizing all these things around you, and you're recognizing the fact that you want to help others that are going through the same thing that you've gone through.
Yeah.
What led you to the job you do now, or at least the at the Impact Center and that type of work?
So I was connected to Gandara by my through my best friend's mom. She's a clinician there, and she was like, hey, they're looking for an intake coordinator. I think is a great opportunity, so you're not overworking yourself.
And you probably said, what the heck is an intake coordinator, and what is Gandara? Okay.
Right. I had a lot of questions. Yeah. I did apply for the job, and I met Jen Avery, and she gave me an opportunity. She was the woman who hired me for the role. She gave me the opportunity. Never had an office job in my life, but I enjoyed what Gandara represented and what it stood for, right? It wanted to help people connect to resources around mental health and recovery. And for me, that was
the things you connected to.
Right.
Right, yeah, okay.
And so doing the intake coordinator work, part of my job or my responsibility was to call families and make sure they wanted to still have services for their kids or young adults. This is 0 to 21. And sometimes I became like their outlet, I guess, and they would like start sharing things, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, wow, that's a lot. But something about just being able to converse with them and give them a sense of a little bit of peace kind of motivated me to want to do more. Like, I want to do more than just intake. And then the Impact Center at the time was looking for a recovery support specialist. So I took my shot.
And you got it.
And I got it.
And that little opening brought you to your calling.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
See, it's funny how just that conversation with somebody reaching out saying, hey, I need a job, somebody say, hey, suggesting something that opens things up. And now, as you said earlier, you can't picture yourself doing anything else at all. And now you're working with people, adults 16 to 26 at the Impact Center, taking them and seeing a reflection of who you were.
Yeah.
Helping you to relate, helping you to have the empathy, the compassion, the understanding of all they're going through. And I think that goes a long way. Somebody, like you said, when your age, at the time, you lost trust in people. Mm-hmm. I would think that the people you encounter recognize the trust they have in you today, and make them feel immensely better or connected, or at least that there's a path. And I think that's a lot of what the Impact Center is trying to do, and connect with the right people. Well, that's a lot that you've gone through, and the bouncing around. And I know, understanding when you look back and you say, yeah, I feel guilty about this, but look at you took the path to, for lack of a better way to say, make up for it. And what you're doing now, your child is how old now?
15.
15. Mm-hmm. So, wow. And you guys have a good relationship, and everything's fine. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you're married and everything. So that's fantastic. So congratulations on all that you've achieved.
Thank you.
And the Impact Center too. What is the website and phone? If somebody wants to show up at the Impact Center, where is it? And if they want to find out more, the website.
Absolutely. So we are located at 41 Taylor Street in Springfield, also known as Dr. Peck's dental office. Usually people know it by that because he's located at the very top floor.
Okay.
We're on the first floor. Young adults can drop in during our open hours at any time.
That's 41 Taylor Street in Springfield. Yeah. Impact Center. What's the website? I was going to say it, but I might get it wrong.
www.impactcenterspringfield.org.
ImpactCenterSpringfield.org.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's great. Great work. Nice having you here, and thanks for sharing your personal story. And we'll be talking more. All right.
Sounds
well,
good.
Thanks everybody for listening, and thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Thanks.